Hey folks, Matt here with another video where today we're going to be talking about tracheostomy tubes with the real purpose of just providing an overview of some of the basic components of a tracheostomy tube. And as you can see before me, I have a few examples set out, and these are in no way all the different types of tracheostomies manufactured and available out on the market, but just a few examples that I have to review some of these basic components. So let's start by looking at this first one over here. This is my Bavona, and I'm going to hold it up here to the camera because I want to show you what I'm holding in my hand here is what's called the flange, or the neck plate, that fits against the patient's neck, obviously, and you can see there's a couple holes, one on each side here by my thumbs. That's for our trach ties to go through to secure it into place. One of the other obvious things you're probably noticing now is that there's actually writing on this, and that's not uncommon at all, that the flange or neck plate will have some information about the tracheostomy. And it's a great way to glean some information if a patient presents with a tracheostomy as far as this size. And if you look over here, you can get some of that information. For example, this one says 8.0 ID, which is the internal diameter, and the outer diameter is 11.7. It also has 120 millimeters for the length. And then on the right side over here by my thumb, you'll see it says it's a Portex. Bavona is the manufacturer, and it talks about the pilot balloon at 25 millimeters. So you can glean quite a bit of information just by glancing at the flange or neck plate. The next thing is I turn this sideways here, you'll just see this is considered the shaft of the tracheostomy tube, and this can come in different sizes depending on, of course, the size of your patient's neck and fitting them. The other thing you'll see more distally here is my cuff and the pilot balloon that goes with that to inflate that. And that's a really important feature to notice right away. If a patient presents to the emergency department, I want to know, is this tracheostomy cuffed or not? And the reason for that is if I were to need to provide positive pressure ventilation, whether by bag valve mask or by a ventilator circuit, I want to be sure that I can instill gas and it doesn't escape out through the upper airways. And so having a cuffed tracheostomy tube is important in those emergency type situations. Another thing I want to show you here is I'm going to reach over here and grab, when the tracheostomy is being inserted, we have what's called an obturator. So this is just during insertion. It's not left in during patient care, but it just goes inside, clicks in just like that, and this just facilitates the passage of the tracheostomy tube into the patient. You can see that it kind of provides a rounded, softer edge there for insertion that minimizes the risk for soft tissue injury on your patients. And of course, once that is placed in the patient, we take that out. Now this one does not have an inner cannula, so it just has the outer cannula here. I'm going to show you one here in just a moment that does have an inner cannula. So that was the Bavona, and the one in the middle here I'm going to reach for is my Shiley. And as I hold that up, I'll let you look at the flange. Like I said, there's information. Every manufacturer is a little bit different, but you can tell some information about internal diameter, outer diameter, that it's cuffed. I also want to point down to the bottom here where it also gives the internal diameter at 6.5 millimeters. And it says, if you can't read that, it says inner cannula. Because as I mentioned before, this Shiley has an inner cannula, which I'm going to take out here. So what they're really talking about, that 6.5, is the inner diameter of this inner cannula here. That's important to differentiate from these readings of the internal diameter without. So this is just the external tracheostomy tube, and that's the internal diameter for it as well as the outer diameter for it. Now the nice thing about these inner cannulas is it provides a way for us to clean and reuse these cannulas for the patient. And it's also nice to know in an emergency department, if this were to become obstructed, you could potentially withdraw this, either clean it and replace it, or ventilate just by hooking this up to my bag valve mask, and be able to provide positive pressure ventilation. Of course, I'd want to inflate my pilot balloon so my cuff inflates so I can direct positive pressure down to the lower airways. But this is just an example. This Shiley is a very common one that has this inner cannula in it. And lastly, I just wanted to give an example. I have this metal one over here, or a Jackson. I just don't see these very often nowadays, but it's still possible. You may see it, and you can Tell that this one also has an inner cannula. It goes in it like that. And then I have, of course, the obturator for insertion. It just goes inside to facilitate passage of this one as well. But as we talked about or alluded to earlier, when you're in the emergency department and you're evaluating a patient with a tracheostomy, you really want to make sure that you have a tracheostomy that has the hub with a 15 millimeter adapter. If you need to supply positive pressure ventilation, then you need to be able to hook this up to the patient here somehow. But as you can see with this particular trach, I cannot hook this up to my bag valve mask or my ET tube circuit, so I would need to change this cannula out. So there you have it, folks. That's just a quick overview of some basic components of a tracheostomy. I hope that has helped you, and that's it for now. Until next time, bye for now.